Hello everyone watching on YouTube and listening on Spotify. It's another episode of NRG Insights. I nearly forgot the name of the podcast then. So anyone that hasn't watched this before, it's as it says on the tin, it's an insight into people in the mortgage industry and people, whether that be specialist lending or broking or kind of ancillary products around it, and people with some influence in the market, just to give you a bit of information and hopefully a few bits of value. And on that, I've got Kai Benjamin, who is the Operations and Lending Director of Century Capital on today. Thanks for joining me, Kai.
Thanks for having me, Marcus. Appreciate it.
Talk to me about your kind of financial services journey. Tell me about where you got to, or how you got to where you are now with Century.
Sure, yeah, absolutely. So casting my mind back, I guess my financial services journey, short version, would be 2007, pre kind of crash and everything that happened there. My best mate, who I was living with, was a mortgage advisor, and he was making some good money.
Till 2008, not so much.
2008 was different. That's a poignant date. He left his CMAT book lying around, and I effectively just picked it up. Obviously didn't have anything important to read or interesting to read at the time. Just looking for something to get me off to sleep, I think.
Yeah, I was going to say that's a slow night, isn't it? If you're picking up CMAT now.
Incredibly. Read through it, kind of made sense. I understood what he did from showed an interest in kind of his work and stuff, and more so the money he was making and whatnot. And sat my CMAP test shortly afterwards, not having spent a day in any financial company.
How was that out of interest? Because I did mine, but obviously I'm surrounded by brokers all the time. So I did mine in 2 weeks, it was relatively easy. But on the course, I was with like taxi drivers and stuff, and I thought, this is a hard gig if you don't hear people talking about it all the time.
Yeah, with no basis. Especially like all the regulation piece was, but that's just a memory game, right? It's what date did this come into effect and stuff. But the practical part made sense to me, a little bit more so. And I had a good reference point, right, living with my best mate. So perfect. And then I was like, right, I've got a CMAT qualification, but I don't have a job in financial services, so I better go and get one.
You've done the opposite to what most people do.
Yeah, precisely. But somebody, saw value in that rather than stupidity, I think, and said, "Oh, you've gone and got that. We'll give you a chance." So I worked at brokerage for about 6 months, and with a really good guy called Andy Sewell back in the day. He still has an IFA practice, and then I was like, I don't know what I'm talking about. I'm just picking up a phone. I've not got much training and, not much competence or knowledge on, the market and everything else. I need a real education. So took a job at Barclays basically, and ground up, started working there. Yeah. In the branch network, in the retail sort of services. And then from then on, sort of got to the point where I was like, dealing with the public's fun, but I'd rather deal with a smaller proportion of the public that are business focused. And then that's when I went into sort of specialist finance, and I had my first gig at Shawbrook, looking after their portfolio, sort of on a loan management basis, writing to the directors about kind of what the borrowers have or haven't done to the property, authorised or not authorised, of course. And that was my shot at kind of getting into underwriting. Really, they saw some of my reports and said, "Oh, you kind of understand kind of on the back end what's happened on these loans. Would you like to look at them on the front end before we lent them any money?" And I said, "Absolutely, that'd be lovely." And that's how I started, and that was. That
got you into underwriting, did it? That brought
me into underwriting, 15 years ago now.
Blimey.
A while back. Had some great years there. So worked for those guys as a challenger bank. Then moved on, worked with Masthaven, Lendinvest, Glenhawk, KSI. I've got portfolio career at this point. Obviously, there's often jokes around how many jobs I've had, and then landed at Century really, where I am now, and that's a short journey.
Interesting. Talk about that actually, because obviously you've progressed your career really well, obviously going up to director level, but you have gone for a few jobs, and we're all always a bit nervous about that when you change. But obviously there's been legitimate reasons for it. But has that helped you when you look at people now? That it's not so much like, obviously you're very good at what you do, but not been given a chance because you looked at a CV. Do you think that changes your perspective when you look at them?
Totally. I'd say that actually it's given me more exposure to.
Oh God, yeah! You look at how rounded your career is if you're just in one place, just doing one thing.
Totally. And everyone's got a different approach. We all do similar things. And job in underwriting's always been around, unregulated specialist development, bit that sprinkled in there as well. But effectively, everyone's got a different, experience themselves, which then they impart on you in some way, shape, or form. And it's funny, we kind of, I think we do judge how we perceive things at our outset and our perspective on kind of lending decisions by the past, right, as well. So
Yeah, yeah.
all the way through, I've got experienced lending people I've worked with in different different roles and different portions of my career, and they've all been shaped by different things. They've all seen different things. So you get a benefit for that for sure. And
Yeah, yeah. Is that the same as in like management style as well? Have you seen some good, seen some bad? Do you think you've utilised bits of or what not to do, what to do?
Totally. I've just signed up for my first management course
Have
after
you?
working in.
15 years in, you thought, all right, man, I better start learning this.
I've managed teams for quite some time as well. So
Yeah.
by the time I do that, I think all my team are cheering at this point, saying, "Oh, he's going forward. Great, he'll be useful after that."
I wonder how useful it is, because I always look at that. Like I'm constantly doing learning stuff, and I think that like you trying to move up the ladder a bit, but there's things you don't know as a
Absolutely.
leader or as a manager. I think leadership is kind of natural. You get some natural qualities towards leadership, but actual managing, like even the process of it, is very different. So I suppose that's important to keep learning. Keep getting better.
Yeah, absolutely, and you're totally right about kind of those experiences. Like my management training has been, what did I like? What didn't I like?
Yeah.
What was fair? What maybe wasn't fair? All those kind of things that you kind of then build a little suite of, and you kind of reference those when there's similar situations or similar personalities that are at play. I think the biggest part of it, like you say, around sort of the leadership bit, that's just do the things that you need to for people to observe and sort of take note of. But the management bit and the people bit, that's all natural to me, or feels natural to me. Just genuinely liking and taking an interest in people.
Do you think that's why you've moved up the ladder, maybe quicker than some?
Um,
Maybe that's a close question, isn't it? But do you think?
That's a very close question.
Because I do.
No. No. I don't know. I think it has a part to play for sure. But ultimately, I think it's opportunity and just grabbing that when it arises or seeing opportunity, and and also people. I've had so many people buy into me and give me value and say, actually, we're going to back this guy, and that's opportunity.
Yeah, but there's something about you that they say it, but there's a reason you go up the ladder. You know what I mean? Like there's a reason people back you over other people. I'm gonna blow smoke up your ass and start saying about what you think it is, but you know what I mean? There is this definite separation, because there's 1,000 underwriters at the underwriting level you're at, and to move up through to this kind of operations director level there's got to be more that people see.
Yeah, I guess the one thing that's really benefited me, and I've sort of tried to impart on the team as well, the teams that I've worked with, as somebody that's kind of a decision maker or holding the line of credit along the way, you can sort of be very analytical, very black and white, binary around your decision making. But we don't work in an industry where, especially what we do, where we're actually lending
yes
money.
or no.
Yes, no, yeah, exactly. It's not that way advised. So I think you then have to have a narrative to back and inform your decision, or to explain the risks that you're willing to take on a deal to mitigate those. So I think the communication piece is important.
Yeah.
And we're all in sales, regardless of whether you're a credit, somebody in credit, or you're somebody in finance.
Yes.
We've all got somebody we're pitching to or appealing to or reasoning. So I think that's the only thing I could say. Again, from a very closed answer, I'll give you a little bit of an open.
Why are you so good? I was asking those.
Yeah. I think it's being able to be both akin to sort of providing a narrative around decision making and being a bit salesy despite being in a credit role. And it's the same.
I've said this to you before, Emma. I think that genuinely separates you. Like to speak to you, you aren't engaging as any salesperson, but you have a technical ability to actually. Anyone who's got both sides of their brain working is always going to do better.
Yeah.
Mine functions in sales and not admin or technical. But
100%. Yeah, but it's the same. All the best salespeople I've met in the market, like I say, you want to spend time with them. They're engaging, they're fun, they're interesting, but they also know their craft.
Yeah.
They're confident around that because they've got a great knowledge base and they understand it, and so they can talk, around. All the time, I look at our sales team and stuff, and I say, like, if you understand why we have made a decision, and you can communicate that properly to your broker network or your client directly, people are going to understand. They might not like the answer, but they're going to understand it, and they'll respect you for it, right? Because you understand it, rather than giving them something short.
Well, that's the thing, is that's about a little bit like the salesman being an authority on it, is actually giving a non-BDME answer, just like a genuine technical, this is why we can't do it, this is what would have to change to do it, and actually being able to do it off their own back is the difference, I think, which is a difference maker. Much the same as you being a technical guy who has the sales ability, I think, or you can kind of sell yourself, or I think that's the difference maker between rising up through the ranks.
100%, and you think about anybody that's involved in that process. The underwriters ultimately they run a case as well as assessing it and reviewing it and getting it agreed and through. So they're effectively an extension of the sales team. Sales team get the inquiry in. I want to work with that person.
Tell them we can do it.
That works for my client. Fantastic. Yeah, awesome. But then the next piece is it goes to an underwriter. And that could be a huge difference in terms of the dynamic change and the shift around communication or wanting to talk to somebody. So they are effectively an extension of the sales team. They've just got a risk assessment on the mind, and that's their MO, right? So,
do you look for that? Funnily enough, when you're looking at underwriters, do you look at that ability to be able to speak to brokers, just to kind of on a same level rather than that? It's just always been very. When you look at it from sides of the industry, it's just been quite a clashing side of things. Underwriters and salespeople, because salespeople want to do the job. But it's not like underwriters don't want to do the business, right? We all get paid when you get money out the door.
Absolutely. Yeah. You can't guarantee a job if you don't make any loans happen. Yeah. No, 100%. One of the first questions, and this will be an insight to any candidates or future underwriters that work with either me or Sentry, but first question is, if you've got to deliver some news to a broker, or you get a brand new case and you do your assessment on that, you've not worked with this broker before, how do you approach it? And the ones that say, I'll pick up the phone and I have a conversation with them.
I was going to say, the one that says email, that's a really easy decision.
Yeah, absolutely. And the ones that say, I pick up the phone, I'm like, great, there's no second process in our interview. You're hired.
You understand risk and you can pick up the phone, you're pretty much, you've got there.
Excellent. It's quite a low bar, really. I don't think there's a huge expectation.
Actually, saying that about the low bar, obviously it's not. Oh, we're joking, but what other traits do you look for when you're looking at people, not salespeople, but on your side of the business, on the technical side? Because we always speak to salespeople on this, and we all know what they've got to be like. But underwriters, what are the kind of traits that you look for?
I think if they can understand everyone's part in that transaction. So, what does the client want to achieve? What's their proposal? What's their perfect situation? An outcome for this loan, for their project, for the property, whatever it may be. If they can understand that, fantastic. That's a great start, because then you actually can underwrite from that part forward, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Then you understand the other stakeholders in the process. So you understand the broker. If you haven't been a broker before, or you haven't had a lot of time sort of socialising with brokers, understanding what their business model looks like.
Walk into any pub in Mayfair if you haven't. It's full of brokers.
Absolutely. You can't have a conversation without them eavesdropping on, but if you don't understand that, I think it's very difficult to, conceptualize how much time they spend on acquiring a client, and once they acquire a client, how much maintenance that client requires and needs, just to keep them going. So I think if you can understand kind of those kind of key elements, and every stakeholder, and obviously there's a huge amount more people that are involved in that process, but then you kind of can understand how to operate within those realms in that region.
Like you said, it's understanding the deal and understanding the whole concept of why, as opposed to the loan to value. Is not as interesting as the why and why they need it and what they're trying to achieve.
Well, and also, our team write really great quality credit papers, right? Which don't only benefit us when we come to assessing a deal or understanding the nuances of a deal or why they made the decision they made. There's the secondary stakeholders, our funders, our auditors that look at these, the loan management team that can kind of see what the situation was meant to be at the start, and if it's different, how it's been different, and that informs them better. So, I think kind of understanding that situation, almost the soft facts are almost as important, nearly as important as some of the more strong sort of hard facts.
I mean, that's also important for brokers as well, right?
Yeah,
that they're not just chucking over a deal because they think it fits it in your loan to value. It's really understanding a deal.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think that's kind of quite a big piece.
I was going to say, how have you found the market with that? Because obviously over the last, say, 3 or 4 years, we've seen a dramatic change in a lot of resi brokers moving over to specialists, or specialists just becoming the norm now. You don't really get vanilla mortgages. How have you found that change with maybe slightly less in regards to education? Because there used to be just a finite group of commercial people who understood it. Now there's people trying it, and there's people in between. How have you found that on the back office side of the function, where maybe there's an education piece and that kind of thing, but how's it changed? 'Cause there's just a lot more brokers doing specialists now, right?
Yeah. Well, I think it's a correlation. The market's grown, and so has the people that operate within it. So I think it's kind of a similar thing, and it's, I think especially with all the rate rises and the different headwinds that the market's had. Like there's been a closing in terms of price point between like maybe term finance and short-term finance as well. So yeah, a huge amount of stuff in the market that's kind of driving factors towards that. But so in relation to your question, do you mean on the back end, what have you seen sort of change?
Yeah, I mean, how have you seen it? How have you seen it change? Or is it just are you having to deal more with brokers to get them to understand deals, or is there anything changed in the kind of the process of it to align with these brokers that maybe haven't got as much experience as they've previously?
Yeah. I think education piece is important. So they've obviously done some digging to sort of land with us or to get to find us effectively. But yeah, absolutely. I think kind of where the fees are kind of stronger maybe than like the term finance piece, you get that also attracts brokers, and like we're all
why not?
fine, there's no issue with that at all. But that could be that they actually see that a bit more transactionally, so they kind of think, well, an opportunity to make some money here. I'll pitch that in.
And 100%, I get that, right? If you're doing resi mortgages for Doris, they're 300Ks and they're at Santander and you're getting 0.3%, and then you see you can make 10, 15 grand or something, you could be blinded by the fact that it looks like easy money, but I'm right in saying it's not. There's no easy money.
Well, and also like these clients are looking to transact multiple times a year, and so I think that's the one thing that I've seen kind of work really well for a lot of the broker market is that if they actually understand their clients well, they understand the business model, they understand the opportunities and the finances available out there, they can really support them as almost like a finance.
Yeah. It's not every 2-year fixed, 5-year fixed, is it? It's 3 times a year, so.
100%. So I think kind of a lot of the guys that get kind of, or a lot of the brokers that I've seen kind of move into that space have said, well, actually, I don't need 400 clients to keep me ticking over. I can work with 20 and be really, really busy and earn really well out of it, and make that work and make a difference to all those clients' businesses, which is awesome. So yeah, I think education's a key thing if you haven't worked in this space before. Just knowing sort of what's available on the market, and that's just getting around to see all the different lenders, what they do, where their tolerances are, where their comfort levels are, what their USPs are, and then I think kind of effectively it's your broker relationship with their clients. Don't just be transactional with it. Help them support them through the whole piece, because the differences with what we do in comparison to term finance is that redemption or that kind of refinance or sale or that exit from our loan comes up really quick. So there's a point where you can support them as well at the end, and that might be another transaction for you. If you refinance them onto a development facility or something different. So it's I think kind of brokers that stick with their clients and sort of offer them a full service are the ones that.
That's what I love about commercial finance, though. You do have to pick up your game. You do get paid better, but you have to up your game, right? Because you're working with sophisticated clients who want multiple transactions, but they expect a good service. So I think that's brilliant. I think the guys that get paid well, or the guys that do the most business, are the guys that understand relationship management, as opposed to, which doesn't always happen in resi, or doesn't always happen in commercial, but just that understanding of no deal's transactional. Like it's super important, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Good. So talk to me about your. Again, I'll keep saying rising up through the ranks like you're 20, but you've done really well. But has there been a case of having some really good mentors for you that have kind of seen you through those periods of movement, and how have they kind of shaped your career?
Yeah, 100%. God, who to choose from? I've been really fortunate.
Now people get offended now if you don't say them.
Yeah, if I don't name drop them. Just a huge list of people. Yeah. Well, I've worked with some brilliant colleagues out there as well. When I first started underwriting, Donna House, who's at Octane, she sort of trained me and spent some time with me and was really gracious. It's always a secondary piece whenever you're
they don't get paid much for that.
Not necessarily managerial. You might be senior in the team, but she was super useful. And that time at Shawbrook was great. There was Stephen Johnson was there and Karen Bennett, and they were kind of like shaping sort of factors and really decent stomping ground for me. That challenger bank mentality, and where it was at the time, it was a really great place where we. I suppose
back then there wasn't these 240 lenders that you see now either, was there? Shawbrook were a big player in a relatively small market.
Yeah, even the challenger banks that are out there now, there wasn't as many doing, the specialist finance stuff
Yeah.
that they were doing at that level. So yeah, it was. That was great kind of start for me. Incredible, and yeah, those guys were fantastic. And again, you could learn from at that point. It's day dot. You learn from everyone.
Yeah.
And
Anyone who listens.
that doesn't change as the journey goes on.
Yeah.
You've just got to be open enough to it. But they were fantastic. And then, I was really fortunate. If I talk about like Lendinvest, we had obviously a much bigger, we had a bigger team there as well.
When was Lendinvest? Because they shot up quite quickly. They were relatively small. Not so long. Not loads of.
Yeah, there's a few good shout outs there. I mean, Ian was always really gracious with his time with me, and Rod. I spent quite a lot of time with Rod as well there, which was fantastic. And just exposure to those guys that have had a lot of experiences, and again, seen so much more than I have.
Yeah.
It's just, and you can always, they were gracious with their time, and I think that's kind of the key bit. If anyone's willing to invest that, it does help people along the way.
Has that shaped you? How do you think how you mentor people, because people have given up their time for you?
Yeah, I think so. And it's not easy, is it? You've got to juggle plates and whatnot, and the perfect time for them to sort of ask you a question isn't always the perfect time for you. But absolutely, I think we're at a point where our teams and the people that work with us to achieve what we need are the most important things, and that's why people like you who do the DD on our new candidates, the people that are going to effectively shape the business and go on and grow and move on in roles, super important. Totally. I think I've been fortunate enough to have a captive audience when I've asked at the right time, maybe. And absolutely, it's been great.
Talk to me about the difference between coming from not a giant maybe at the time, but quite a big corporate machine, to working for some of the smaller brokers, maybe like founder-owner brokers, lenders. Sorry. What are the big differences for you, and what have you taken that has benefited the kind of the founder-owner businesses from your more corporate jobs?
I think it's kind of just where businesses are in their journey along the way. So. Because again, I could speak to the different types of lenders I've worked for, but actually where they are in their journey is actually almost more definitive than the type they are in a way. So, I'd say when you see a well-oiled machine that is knocking out a huge amount of business efficiently with great risk decisioning, good foundational pieces, structure around the business, it's great. That's a luxury to have.
And a great place to learn as well, right?
Absolutely. There's more people that you can annoy and go and sit at their desk and ask them annoying questions. I guess kind of from my perspective and my experience, when you see a business that's kind of at that point, you kind of almost can see how they've got there, or what they've shaped to do that, and what's important. So when you go into sort of a more, for want of a better phrase, like a simple and more lean business, with less people in the business, less functions in the business, you kind of work out, well, what's the most important things that we need to do day in, day out, and how do we do them? And you can just draw from, I've been able to draw from my references and my time with bigger lenders and bigger businesses, and even stuff that they've maybe, moved on from. It could be like a system that was pretty, relatively manual, or kind of only covered one part, and then they've changed it up for a system that does everything. It's all singing, all dancing, but it also costs,
Surely you can add more value when you move on, to maybe, businesses that aren't quite there in their journey.
Absolutely.
Because as great as those learning places are, like Shawbrook and the likes of, there's Togethers of this world, the amount that you can add to a business, it's relative, isn't it, to where they are in their journey.
Totally. Yeah, totally. And I think that's why I kind of, with the likes of Glenn Hawke and working with Nick and Guy really closely, and same with Century, although it's an established business, like there's just a huge value add in terms of where we are in our journey and what you can, what you can provide. And it's not one size fits all either, right? So you come in and say, well, like I said, I was talking about systems. Here's a system where it might cost us £250,000 to put into place, and then our licensing and service, and our hosting fees are 25-30 grand a month.
More,
but there's only 15 of us in the business. It's like, well, that's not applicable. So you kind of know what does work. And you can easily sort of find a happy medium.
Nice. And also, in regards to your moving out, this is going to sound like I'm blowing smoke at your ass again, but we talked about this the other day. I've never heard anyone say a bad word against you, which I think in this industry is very, very important, right? You don't seem to have ever fallen out with anyone, especially if you've been in the same job forever. There's those people, but you've worked at multiple different companies, and you've always seemed to have. Everyone always talks about you in high regard. Do you? Again, this sounds really close.
I've made it work as a yes man for 15 years.
My life's just gone up. That was my bullshit detector. Then you see that when I but do you think that's important in this industry? Because I think that, like, I don't fall out with people. I try not to, but it helps for longevity, right, in your career, or it helps as you move up the ladder.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, people pleaser at heart, I think, probably helps. No, I think I've been really fortunate. Again, the people that I've worked with alongside and been shoulder to shoulder with, we've just been aligned in terms of what's important. And I find it really difficult when I've found, and a couple of times I've found this in my career, where I've not been aligned with like what the business wants or what the business needs, and then I don't give 100% of myself. And at that point, I'm asking questions around like, should I be here, before somebody else is asking questions around.
Yeah. Do you feel it before they feel it, right? You know if you're supposed to be somewhere or not.
Yeah, and don't get me wrong, like, it's not like I woke up, or I grew up and I was like, I want to be in specialist finance.
No one did.
No one did, right? But in terms of the people, which is a huge part of the business, trying to build operational value in a business, or try and add value to a business in any sort of portion of it. If I'm aligned with the people that I'm working alongside with, shoulder to shoulder, that's what really kind of makes me tick, I guess. I think I've not stayed anywhere too long where it's not in my heart, like, it's not really me. And that's like, I've moved jobs a couple of times relatively quickly, but it's down to sort of wanting to challenge myself and give myself sort of the best opportunity to sort of add value and do what I can, I think.
You joke then about the people pleasing thing. I actually don't think there's anything wrong with that. That's one of my traits. Like, I desperately want everyone to like me and to do a good job for people, and that's the pleasing thing, isn't it? That's like I actually think it's a good trait, which if it's not detrimental to yourself,
Yeah, of course. But there are times, I mean, how many times a day do we have to have a conversation we don't really want to have? But there's also that, right, on the other side. But again, if you're thoughtful about it and you attack it with the right genuine intent and come from a good place, then I don't think any outcome is going to be terrible, right? Yeah.
So there's ways of speaking to people and kind of working every situation. So let's talk about Century now. So how long you been with Century?
So joined June 24, so 8 months now.
Good. And how's the market with you guys? What are you seeing? What's better now, or has it always been personally buoyant?
Sentiment has returned probably tail end of last year, which is great, and that always drives kind of like transactions and whatnot out there. Things are great. Things are going really well. It is an unusual market. There's lots of things at play, like anything from like the geopolitical situation, interest rates.
We keep saying that we keep getting rid of these wait and see moments. And then with rates around the moment, there's never a stop in the wait and see moments. Like, if you don't have to move, you might wait and see. And now it's the same with the way rates are. It's a constant. It's a steadier market, though, right? And I think that, like you say, as long as money doesn't have to be cheap, it just has to be steady.
Definitely.
So for people to be confident.
The factors that drive opportunity for us in the lending businesses are that there's still housing demand. There's still tons of opportunity out there to add value to property. We're still obsessed with it in the UK, and then from an international market perspective, we lend to some international clients as well, quite a lot of international clients, and ultimately, London's still a destination to invest in, and that's always going to be, prominent. So
you say about us being obsessed with property. I did see a funny thing the other day. There's an American person saying about, English people look at Rightmove for no reason. It's a British thing to look at other people's houses. They go, oh, so-and-so's moving. They're like, how did you speak to him? They go, oh, no, British people look at Rightmove as a real thing. It's just completely foreign to an American person that you would look at property that you're not buying. But this is just a British thing. Oh, but look at what I can't afford.
We're obsessed. And again, you track, you look at, the areas you're in, and you're like, oh, how many sales have been going on?
Yeah, what's
Is
up
my
with
market busy or not? It is unusual when you think about it. Yeah.
Yeah, it's really, but it's only when I saw that I thought I didn't know everyone. I didn't know every nation didn't have a look at what their neighbour's house costs and what they can get next and where you are.
We're
But
just
yeah,
nosy, I think.
we're
Yeah.
obsessed with it.
Yeah. Nosy as well, I think. Yeah.
Yeah. Partly that. So obviously in the bridging market, there are 240 lenders, probably a little bit less this year once you take out all the ones that fell by the wayside last. But you're carving your own path through it essentially. But how do you separate yourself from the pack? What is it that you can kind of provide or offer? Because it's a tough market, right? Everyone's got money to get out the door.
Well, it's a strange one. A lot of people, I don't know if they, are willing to say this over a beer or not, but a lot of the lenders that we are in competition with, or that form our market,
Yeah.
we're not funded by a dissimilar level of.
No, that's it. Yeah, if all the money comes from the same place, it's very hard to.
Precisely.
Or the same 5 places. It's very difficult to differentiate yourself with cost, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think kind of from a product perspective, regardless of where you pitch yourself, what you offer, where your appetite is, what your pricing looks like, what your fee payaways are, there's always going to be competition, regardless of where you pitch yourself. Right?
Someone is always going to be cheaper. That's the issue.
Yeah. And that's not always the most important thing, right? A lot of brokers will say, like, that's not always the most important thing, but you'll be in competition with somebody else at your price point, regardless of where you pitch yourself. And so then it comes down to what speed, service, deliverability.
I even think speed is a difficult one at the moment, isn't it? Because who doesn't want a fast bridge? Do you know what I mean? Like, it's deliverability is absolutely the key word, isn't it?
I completely agree. Like the speed piece makes me laugh because whenever somebody says USP is speed, it's like it's bridging.
Well, I've seen on LinkedIn that everyone can do a bridge in 3 days.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that can't be bullshit because no one lies on LinkedIn. It's just the truth.
No, absolutely. There's never that. There's never. It's 4 days actually. It's not
4 days. Yeah, average.
No, I think, and those things are all important, because you'll have a track record where you've been able to deliver quickly for people. You'll have a track record where you've offered great service, because that's been your most important piece, and you've prioritised that and whatever. Or it could be the deliverability bit, which if you've got a solid foundation, you've been in the market for a number of years, you build trust in a certain way.
Yeah.
But what personally for me it comes down to is it's the people, it's the relationships. We still are, and we always will be a relationship-driven business. I don't think that changes. So I think it's the people that we have in the business. It's the people that maintain, our active relationships with brokers and clients and our introducers, and that's got to be our USP. And that's for me. That's where I will invest. And don't get me wrong. Do we need the bells and whistles around the outside? Do we need systems?
Yeah, everyone's got to have a product, right? But it's more than that. Like you say, the relationship side of things is so key.
Yeah.
Do you find that? Sorry, carry on.
I was just going to say it's always been that way for as long as I've been in the business, and I think it's going to continue to be that way because what we do isn't straightforward and binary. There's some stuff that you can do. We could build a brilliant decisioning model which would carve out 80% of the inquiries that we see because they don't fit for us or they're not competitive enough for the brokers. We could automate all of that. And that's fantastic. I'm happy to do that. I'm happy to look at that. But actually, what you lose is all the conversations around those. 80%.
Or this would work if you can't automate that, can you? They can't. That's why hopefully we've got a job for a little bit longer till the AI takes over the world.
Yeah, I hope so. Until we're both cloned, which would be
exactly. This is me anyway. This is actually.
But yeah,
I'm sat on a beach somewhere. This is just my AI talking to you.
I thought so. You are pretty much ahead of the game. So yeah,
exactly. Got to stay ahead of the curve.
Yeah,
but no, I think that's important. Like you say, the relationship management side of things. You can't process that. I don't think you can. Like you say, if you say no on an email rather than a phone call, you miss vital information. And I think it's the little tidbits, same as like the little conversations we'll have every now and then. And that might be with you, with brokers, whoever. Those little bits that I get from picking up the phone every day or going into town every day to shake hands with people is the bit that I think separates you from the yes nos, because similar to recruitment, kind of anyone could do my job on the basic level, but actually the adding value, the relationship management, that kind of thing, I don't think people can't catch you if you just really focus on that side of your business.
Yeah, 100%. I think that's what sets any business apart and any lender apart in our space.
Yeah. I always blows my mind when people say, I was talking actually, there's a guy I saw at Twickenham at the weekend, and he said he was working with a certain recruiter, and I said, oh, well, you know, they are cheaper than us, blah, 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 and he said, yeah, I've never met him. And I was like, how long you worked with them? He said, 3 years, and I thought, 3 years, and you've never met him? That is bizarre. There's still people out there making money, just sat in their office.
Well, especially, I think there's a correlation and a kinship, isn't there, to what you guys do massively in relation to that. And you know, you've got a unique, job of matching, candidate and landing spot for everyone. So you got to know the hiring manager, you got to know the culture, you got to understand all of that, and to do that, you've got to be in the mix, right?
Yeah,
100%.
Very similar to you with the matching and the AI. We've got AI that we use to match people to jobs, but they're completely they're completely irrelevant because they might match 100 people to it, and we know there's probably only 3 people in the country that could do that job. So we've still got to go through and do the legwork of, like you say, like you try and teach AI culture. It's next to impossible.
And I think technology is important in our industry. Like the mortgage industry is probably one of the most draconian kind of industries out there, right?
I don't know, legals.
Legals, yeah. Which is all part of our process, so we're aware to that as well, right?
I suppose, doesn't help you, does it? The lawyers are behind you.
No, not at all. But I think there's definitely a place for that, and where we see it sort of in our business, and I think most businesses in our space is, like I say, you want to retain that human element, that relationship piece, and the decision making and where things are nuanced and structuring deals and offering up different solutions which are not a yes/no answer. That's where people add real value in our business. But there's definitely an opportunity to sort of bring efficiencies to the administrative staff and the items that people don't really want to spend their time doing.
That's genuinely what I think. I think the AI in my life has meant I can spend 10 hours seeing people, which is actually where I add value, which is actually where I make my money. If to take it down to the bare bones of it. I don't make money doing admin. I don't make money matching people that aren't relevant. You know what I mean? That's not mine. Is actually the relationship side of things and speaking, and it can't do that for me yet.
And for a large proportion of people, I think that's what they really enjoy. We all kind of we've missed some of our working relationships being FaceTime that we had in recent years with the pandemic, and I think we're all past the point of being like, oh, we're back in the mix of that, but actually it's when you know what you're missing, kind of
Let's talk about that actually, because you guys are office based, right? You're in the office as much as possible. And there's this constant fight at the moment between the working from home and stuff. And what I think, I'm a believer in getting people in, but especially in your business, I get it, like with Resi, if you're a Resi underwriter, for instance, and you're banging them out, and that is yes, no. I do think that can be automated quicker than our side of the market. But what have you found with the importance of like getting people in and the collaboration stuff? What's your take on it?
Yeah. Aside from the small bits that everybody mentions, the availability where a 3-minute conversation can happen in 3 minutes rather than, I've called you back.
Zoom meeting and then someone's in trouble,
Exactly. Yeah. There's actually 4 people that are waiting at the door to ask me. I think, I think it's kind of the knowledge sharing and, just via osmosis, kind of how much you pick up on stuff, even if you're not actively being involved in a conversation or a situation. It's so much easier to sort of build a knowledge base when you're in the office.
I think it's so important. I don't think people realise. I speak to people in their 20s especially that want to work from home because it's just I had people saying that's what I've built my life around, and I think you haven't built a life yet. You need to learn. You've got so much learning to do in your first 10, 15 years of your career. And I only got good at my job by sitting next to someone who's really good at their job. Yeah. That's it. And he was exceptional. He was always first in the company and I was second because I was learning. And then you get to a point where you're like, right, I can do this. But without him, I couldn't learn. I couldn't learn finance. It's nuts. No. Even like, just like you said, just being around people and people learning off you. I also think on the other end of the spectrum, people our age who probably could do their job working from home, it's really selfish because someone spent time inspiring you, mentoring you for 10 years, and then we're saying, well, we can do ours, so I'm all right, Jack. I just think it's...
Sorry, you're not available. I'm going to do it from the...
Exactly, I've done my bit.
Well, and talk about sort of mentors and whatever, I look at Paul as well in the business, and what he doesn't know about prime lending and prime property. And, I think we're all on a journey where we learn every day and we pick up from, different traits and,
Yeah.
little nuggets from everybody along the way. But again, if I wasn't in the business and in the mix,
You see it.
it's impossible.
I would love to see the research or the stats on how many promotions there are from people working from home. Because I had Louisa Sedgwick on the other day from Paragon, and she made a really good point of, I've always been visible. I've risen up through the ranks to MD because I've always been visible. She said, don't be a big head about it and tell everyone what you're doing all the time, but just be visible. And how can you be visible when you're working from home?
Yeah.
You just can't, you might get the job done and tick the list, but I haven't really noticed you. If you're in the office next to me, and you kind of even ignore people's bad points because they're in the office, and their good points are really shine through.
Yeah.
Whereas the other way, you're kind of, you don't. I honestly believe that I trust everyone implicitly in your business to work from home. But it's always in the back of your mind, like if the person is in front of you, they're doing the job.
Yeah. Well, and we're a social species. I mean, there was times where I was working full time at home, during the pandemic, and that was difficult. It was very, very difficult. I found myself more and more connecting with like my network and stuff on the phone. So I probably actually spent a similar amount of time, trying to pick up on how people are doing, or what they're doing, and how they're finding the market. But it was just done via phone call instead.
Yeah.
So,
you were lucky because you're actually still making money then. We were drinking wine with our Frosties because no one was recruiting. But it was a tough time. But then I spent that whole time I think we talked about this the other day, actually. I spent the whole of that time not making any money, but just on the phone to people going, it's going to be all right, dig in, this is what I'm seeing. And people mortgages were going out the door, it was just harder. No one had, the trouble is with us, no one knew how to recruit. They knew they could still function as a business, but like it was a foreign thing to have to recruit people working from home, even like setting up systems and stuff. So we were screwed, but you guys were doing okay. So we kept having a phone people going, it's fine, it's going to be okay.
And did you find, obviously, people probably were looking at, retracting as businesses or, protecting what they had, or at least staying sort of...
Yeah. And also, if you were in a business, you wouldn't even be aware of the fact that you weren't enjoying it. Like, you're working from home, you're just happy, you're grateful that you were getting a salary every month.
Yeah.
It's just a different market, It's just weird. It was a weird time.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think it's slowly reverting back to people going back in the office. I know everyone's moaning about it, and I probably get grief for saying that, but I just think it's really important. Like, even like training trainees and stuff, it's really, really taxing. It just takes longer, doesn't it? Everything takes longer from home.
I think, and again, you kind of lent on the fact that I think kind of, especially if you're in like your formative part of your career or early part of your career, I think there's even more onus to do that because every day becomes even more learning. Like you said, obviously there's learns every day for us as well, but ultimately, and you've got a pool of people that are there that you can pick up on. So I think it's kind of it's an essential piece. But if you're in a business where you've got flexibility, but you choose to come in, probably a bit of a secret sauce there that you're kind of like tapping into to sort of put yourself and elevate yourself.
Definitely. You're putting your head above the parapet, aren't you?
Yeah, of course.
Good. So let's talk about that. I know we mentioned culture earlier on.
Yeah.
What for you as a leader in the business? What are you looking for? What are you looking to build there, and what parts of culture are important to you?
Yeah, I think kind of alignment is the key bit. Like I said before, there probably have been businesses where I could have got on board with the MO and what we wanted to do and what we wanted to build, but it might be that the senior team or the owners just didn't explain that or didn't want to talk that through. And so you then sort of are working in your own silo, but to what end is the question. So I think kind of here especially, I think kind of what the business has been built to be and where we're at, there's still a little bit more we could do in terms of alignment. So that's kind of one impact I think that probably helps, in terms of...
I was going to say, you must be quite involved in that because obviously it was a relatively small business and, you're growing rapidly. So that's kind of important absolutely. To make sure you instill it now, right?
Yeah, and I think everyone's focus is in a smaller business. It is all hands to the pump. Everyone's involved in everything, but actually having kind of a bit more of a overarching, comm strategy and just relaying what the business strategy is. Where are our growth plans? What are we looking to do? Who do we need to join us to do that? What technology do we need to sort of impart on the business? And what are our funding partners looking like? Who else do we need to bring on board to sort of realise?
Do you share that with the team? Do you keep everyone kind of...
Yeah, absolutely. So we do a monthly company update, buy everyone breakfast, sit them down and just chat through kind of, look, here's the, leaders of each part of the business, this is what we're working on, this is what's happening. Be kind of mindful that some people might have less capacity because they've got this big project piece they're trying to deliver, or we've got funders coming into the office, so just be aware that we've got visitors, here's what we're doing. And actually people have found it really, really useful. And I think at any size business we probably don't communicate enough, or we don't.
Do you know what you saying that just made me think, like, I don't do it anywhere near enough, because we're such a small team. I'm like, of course everyone knows the vision, but things change all the time, don't they? And like you say, we're all in the same office, so we can update people on the daily, but it's not the same as like realigning the vision all the time and the purpose and remembering why we're doing it. I think maybe that's how I fall down on that, because it's just like, well, we know what we're doing, we're all working. And
I think it's easy to sort of push that to one side, because there's more explicit.
We're all trying to generate revenue, aren't we? That's like our main thing, and we kind of lose sight of the vision and purpose thing. The money's a byproduct if we get everything else right, but
absolutely,
I have to concentrate on generating revenue.
Well, but the thing is, if everybody's aligned to that kind of MO and the business kind of goals, then actually you do drive revenue by keeping them informed and making sure they understand the role that they're playing in that. And the team is super important. There's not one person in the team that we can't achieve. We can't achieve what we want without them kind of firing on all cylinders. So I think that's kind of the most important thing. And the businesses that have been either in a growth period or startups or whatever it may be, when you're all part of that, it's quite exciting as well. There's an energy.
I was going to say, you're quite excited at the moment because you're part of something. You've been in that big machine, and now you've got to do, right? Everything you do makes a fairly big impact, good or bad. So that must be quite an exciting time in your career.
Totally. And again, when you've got a team that you're responsible for, you want to make their working environment great. You want to make their jobs ultimately easier, or give them the tools that they need to do their jobs if they haven't got them already. It is nice. And I think if working with a smaller business or a leaner business, it's not something where you've got all of the red tape, all of the politics involved, all of the long positioning and journeys. Is there a good business case for it? Will it benefit us? How will it benefit us? What's the cost-benefit ratio? Let's get it done.
Good. Nice. I have kept you longer than I said I would, but I do that on every single podcast. So I might just extend them. I might just is there a bit longer.
I'm fine with it. I'm having a ball.
Hey, good. So that talks to me about the if there are some aspiring underwriters or someone who, because I get so many people on the sales side of this podcast. It's great to hear people on the other side. If there are some aspiring underwriters, or maybe already in it or looking to grow their bit like you have, have that longevity in the business, what do you think the key components to what they have to think about to get that kind of longevity or progress to where you have?
Good question. I think harking back to that kind of understanding the stakeholders in the process is really important. Communication is really important. They kind of go hand in hand around that piece, and we've kind of spent a bit of time on that today. I think it's around sort of knowing your craft and just be hungry to sort of looking for learn. So if there's something you don't understand, it could be an asset class. So say it's commercial, BA storage or something like that. You've not really done much of that. Well, if there's another, again, time allowing, if there's another case that's in the pipeline and you're not looking after it, but you've never looked at that before, take a look at that valuation report, understand how the assessment goes, read a bit about the market commentary, and actually reaching out to the professionals in our kind of industry, I think is really important. I was fortunate, I guess, in the early part of my career, we used to share an office with one of our lawyers when I was at Shawbrook. And the beauty was, anytime I saw a legal memo or a point or something on the title, something related to a property kind of overage or whatever, if I didn't understand it, I'd be like, excuse me, this is like double Dutch to me. Walk over there, stand by and they're obviously billing on hours, so they loved this.
Of course, come on in.
They'd all duck and turn away as I sort of walked in the office. But I was just naturally inquisitive, and that I think that really serves you well, kind of running towards those points that you don't understand as much. Because if anything, it gives you just a wider basis to.
Like you say, be curiosity, isn't it? Be curious, because. Do you think that comes with being passionate about it though? Because you can't be curious about something you're not interested in. I think you can have a passion. It's really hard. I love what I do, and I'm always curious. I love these because I'm constantly interested. But it's only because I'm passionate about it. Like I couldn't do it. I couldn't ask questions. You know what I mean? If someone asked me about, I don't know, horses, I haven't got any questions for them because I don't care about them. I just.
How many legs have they got?
But do you know what I mean? Like, I think you do have to have an element of passion to to
Yeah.
get on, right? You got to give a shit. Otherwise,
Totally.
it's really hard to care enough to be learned enough to get better.
Yeah, and I think if if you see a career and you want to carve a path out for yourself, then I think that's all self-fulfilling, right? You then are curious because you can see a roadway for yourself, you can see
Yeah,
progression for yourself, and then the curiosity will come, and then you're asking the right questions. But yeah, I think
nice.
there's so much to learn in this industry as well. You're never
You're
gonna
never
reach.
finished, are you? That's what I think. You know what? I think that's why I love it. It's the same reason I like we talk about sport and stuff, but I like the gym because you're never finished. Maybe that's like my obsessiveness on stuff. Like you can't. There's no end goal, is it? I'm never going to know everything. Like to say, yeah, same as to working out. You never. There's no end goal. There's no season where you go, right, good, that's done.
And I think kind of we're used to sort of as humans, I guess the propensity is to give things a beginning, a middle, and an end. Like we
Yeah,
do it all the time, don't we? But when
yeah,
you
yeah,
find something that doesn't really have an end,
yeah,
I think that kind of is quite interesting.
yeah.
Yeah, same for me in the sports piece as well. Yeah, totally.
Good. Good. Thank you, mate. I really appreciate your time today. If anyone wants to get hold of you and have a chat with you, and genuinely, Kai is an open book. He'll be happily, I say talk to anyone, you'll get loads of messages. But you're happy to, aren't you? You've always been like that. You've always been,
Yeah,
very
yeah.
open and happy to speak to people.
I probably have got an unhealthy amount of other lenders I spend coffees and lunches with because there's always something to talk about. There's always something to learn, and there's great in the industry. I'm so fortunate, and I think a lot of people will speak to this as well. I've had work contacts and colleagues become friends, and now I think of them as friends before anything else, right? And so
Yeah.
I think what we do, it is so relationship focused. It is a people business, right? Massively. So there's.
Do you know what? I do think that's your mindset as well, though, because I'll speak to people who will talk how insular the business is. So
Yeah.
I do think it's about how you want to help people and people want to help you. I think we talked about that before. Just saying, I love other people's success like you do. You love watching people succeed.
Yeah.
So I don't think it's just that it's a good industry with good people. I think you make it what it is.
Yeah, maybe so. But there's lots of other people that also are willing to give up their time and do that. And I've benefited from that massively a lot across my time here. So yeah.
I've called you really nice about 4 times in this, and you keep batting it off every time. Just going, no, I think it might be something else. It's just
Can't take a compliment.
I know, yeah. I'm going to title this nicest guy in London, and then you'll have to. No, I won't. But I appreciate your time today, Kai. Like I said, hopefully this has added some value to a lot of people. Like I said, again, we don't get a lot from the back office side of things, from the operational side, so it's great to get your take on it. And there's very little difference. I think people understand, hopefully understand that when they hear you. There's very little difference when it comes to still relationship management. It's still a sale of such, and it's still caring about what you do on both sides. So hopefully that adds some value, and also for brokers as well, just to get that understanding of like everyone wants to do the deal, and no one is against you because they're on the technical side.
Totally. No, and I think kind of listening to quite a few of the podcasts and stuff that you've done, there's common themes that come up again and again, right? Across whether you're a broker, whether you're in the lender front, if you're a professional surveyor, solicitor, whatever. There's always similar kind of things, but there's always these little nuances and nuggets that come from them. So
yeah, definitely. I have to go for an hour every one just to get to those 5 minutes, but it's worth it for me. And then I'll just fish out the little good bits for them because I'm kind of like that. But cool, thank you, mate. Like I said, I appreciate it. Thank you for everyone listening on Spotify and watching on YouTube. It's been another episode of NRG Insights. Thanks, Kai.
Thanks, Marcus.